What's going on, spectators? You've got the latest episode of Spectales loaded up and ready to invade your ear holes. I'm your synopsis butchering host, Jake, along with my scarce book detector co-host, Jesus. Jesus, how's it going?
Oh man, you're right, dude. I'm just right here, there. They just come up everywhere for me, these scarce books, man.
That's right. He's the scarce book detector, the SBD. If this is your first time listening to Spectales, we would like to say thanks for letting us invade your ear holes for a little while. We're confident you won't regret it. Spectales is a comic book podcast that asks collectors and creators, what's your Grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, or how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
This week, Jesus, we've got one of the hardest working, most versatile comic creators in the business joining us. Writer and artist Tim Seeley joins us to discuss the giant pile of work he's churned out recently and a Grail tale that calls upon the power of Castle Grayskull.
Yeah, man. Sounds exciting. But before we jump into this episode, Jake, we got to add a couple more names to the Scarce Army.
Oh, that's right. That's right. The Scarce Army roll call has quickly become one of our favorite things to do every single week. We are closing out our first month of Patreon, and we need to give massive shout out thank you to all the patrons out there. Thank you all so much for supporting the show and helping Jesus and I continue this train rolling. Jesus, who are we welcoming to the Scarce Army this week?
This week, we get to welcome Patrick Maloney and Graham to the Scarce Army. Thanks to both of you for what you're doing to support our show. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you both so very much. If you're listening out there and are enjoying the show, we launched our Patreon page as a way for listeners to support Spectales, and all the funds we raise go towards the show and the creative things we're doing. If you want to check out and see all the additional benefits like the new monthly series floppies, check the link in the show notes or head over to patreon.com and search Spectales. Okay, all of it out of the way, let's get this episode started. So check the streets of Chicago for 9.8 slabs and pose for an intergalactic money shot. This is episode 37.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Here we go, spectators. Let's jump right into it. This week, Jesus and I are thrilled to be joined by one of our favorite comic book creators working today, Tim, the total comic book creator package, Seeley. Tim, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'll take that. That's not a way I've heard myself referred to before, but I'll take it. I like it.
Tim, it's really awesome for you to join us, and please don't mind Jake. He likes to add middle names to people for no reason. But that one is very fitting, though. That one is very fitting.
I'll take it.
So, Tim, before the show, Jesus and I were discussing just how much work you're churning out right now. I've got a short list here. It's probably not long enough. Superman vs. Lobo just wrapped up. Robins is finishing up next month. And you've got a killer Western vampire saga called West of Sundown launching on April 6th. Not to mention Gwenniverse and King Shark as well. So my question is, what the hell motivates you? Like, what keeps your engine burning so hot to produce all of this content?
Mostly my taxes, I guess. Well, I mean, I like making stuff. So for me, if the opportunity to make stuff comes up, I often take it. And then, like, lately, the weird thing has been like that the pandemic really kind of screwed with comic book schedules, and it kind of made me freak out a little bit in the beginning. So like I kind of signed on for some stuff, or I did work that wasn't something that I would normally have pursued, which was like a couple of original graphic novels. So I did like Chronophage, and there's another one I'm working on. where, I worked on stuff that was a little bit like longer term, and then thinking, hey, I don't know how the comic schedule release and stores are closing down. And it's like 2 years ago, and that's still sort of buckling my schedule as it goes out. On the upside, it's like I got a lot of stuff out, and I've got a lot of stuff that I really get to spend time on, which is cool. Because I'm sure you've heard other people pointed out that sometimes when you're working for Marvel or DC, you do something like, in a week you write like 3 issues worth of content or something. Like when I did Chronophage, like I got to like really put the time into it, and once I finished the 6th issue, I got to go back and sort of fix things and make it all work like you would do if you're writing a screenplay or something. And so on the upside, like a lot of the stuff that's coming out now is stuff I really put some time into. And West of Sundown is that, which is great, and Chronophage is that. And the other stuff were just like things I couldn't turn down, even though I was probably too busy. Like I couldn't turn down King Shark. I've been working on a Lobo Superman thing for a long time at DC, and it finally we figured out how to do it, and that was to work with Mirka and Dolfo. So that was a thing I couldn't turn down. And then my daughter loves the Into the Spider-Verse, and she loves the Spidey and His Amazing Friends. So like when Marvel said, "Hey, you want to do something with Spider-Gwen?" I was like, I can't turn that down. Like I have to do it for my kid, and I know more about these characters than I ever would need to know. It's the version that is for kindergartners, but I know that version inside and out. I've seen those episodes 10 times each because I sit and watch them with my kids. So, and I've seen Into the Spider-Verse at least 6 times. So I felt like it was, the right time to take that gig too. So I just like to make stuff, and when cool stuff comes up, I really have a hard time saying no. That's kind of like always been my curse. And I've got other things I'm working on that like I couldn't say no. I've got a comic thing that it hasn't been announced, but it's like my favorite stuff ever, and I couldn't turn it down. And then I worked on some stuff in like, film, and I worked on video games, and like I just couldn't turn stuff down because it was too fun. So yeah, I'll drop dead of heart attack next week, but I will have done a bunch of stuff. So.
And I want to just add that I do think it's incredible that you are writing and you are doing the artwork, not necessarily always exclusively on like both on the same project, but you are doing both of those gigs simultaneously on different projects.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just incredible that you have the tools to be able to do that.
I mean, I wish the thing in comics is I thought I would be able to like write and draw a book, and it's never happens. It's just like impossible to time. So instead, it's like I draw one and I write another one, and I do a cover for one, and it's never the same thing. It's weird, but it's just hard to line up in comics for some reason.
Well, I want to say it's awesome to speak to you though, just because of the history of what Jesus and I have experienced over really the last decade and a half, 2 decades. Jesus, I don't want to speak for how long you've been reading Tim's stuff, but both of us, really early, got on Hack and Slash, which is we're both big fans of. So we wanted to. We're certainly going to be talking about that at some point. But Jesus.
Yeah, man, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about it, but we're gonna hold off on that. Again, that's another tease right there that I
one of our infamous teases.
But yeah, we're gonna talk about that. But one of the other things too, I think you didn't mention, you also did a cover for Archie, right? I think recently that's gonna come out.
That's right. Yeah, okay. There's a short story for them, a 10-page story.
Yeah,
Nice.
so that's what I'm saying. Like, there's just so much. You're talking about DC, Marvel, independent that you got going on, and it's just a wonder how you can, do all those things at once, and at the same time, like Jake mentioned, you write and you draw, which I just think is crazy to me.
I teach a college class too.
Oh, that's right. I have that here too. You teach that.
Worse, I don't know. I don't even have time to shit. I don't even know.
I think in the future will tell us that you figured out how to clone yourself to do more.
Yeah.
That or caffeine pills. Tim is unfortunately addicted to caffeine pills. No, he is not. I made that up. All right. Well, All right, Tim. So the basic structure of Spec Tales is we've got 3 segments. The first segment is a recent pickup segment where we're each going to go over and talk about a book or books that we recently picked up, whether it's something that we're reading or something that we're collecting. Then we will roll into a Grail Tale segment where we will ask you, Tim, to tell us about a Grail of your own, comic, collectible related, something that is very important to you. Maybe there's a special story behind how you got it, or it just represents something special to you as far as maybe it motivated you to get into comics. We'll let you make it what you want. No rules, just right, that sort of thing. And then we always close every episode with speculation. And this is a lot of our listeners are collectors and people who like to help the hobby pay for itself. So that's how we'll close out. Does that sound good to you?
Sure.
All right. Well, with that, let's get right into the first segment.
Recent pickups.
All right. That's the recent pickup segment. Jesus, you always lead this one off, so I'm going to let you go.
All right, man. I got 2 books here. I think I've talked about both of these books at some point in our previous episodes, but long ago. So I'm going to bring them up again because they are relevant right now. The first one I will bring up is this book here. It's Nova from 2011 with Sam Alexander, Miles, and Kamala Khan on the cover, along with a couple others. But this book is relevant, or is a key, because it's the first meeting between Sam Alexander and Richard Rider. And as you guys know, Richard Rider news broke over the past couple days that a project is in development in the MCU. So this is one that is a minor key, but it's still a cool key. You can find these in dollar bins, back bins right now. And if you look online, they're selling them for between $25 and $30. So that's something that you can use to help you pay for the hobby, to get you a bigger Grail book if you like. And then this one, shout out to Ryan from Automatic Comics. This is Marvel Team Up featuring Spider-Man and the Human Torch number 3. This is the 3rd appearance of Morbius.
That's a cool book.
I think it's a cool cover too. You have the Human Torch, Morbius, and Spider-Man on the cover. If you can't afford the first one, or if it's a little bit out of your reach, the second one, second appearance as well, you can get this 3rd appearance with a really cool cover on it. Fairly cheap, man. It's a fairly cheap book right now. Morbius is relevant. The movie's about to come out. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about those 2 books because those aren't the major keys that you normally hear about or think about. But they're cool books to have at the same time, and they can also help you get to your keys.
Very nice. Yeah, I love that cover. I know that some of those team up books, they don't get all the same love that a lot of the other main series get from the Bronze Age. I like that cover a lot. That's pretty cool. Tim, do you get into collecting some of the older stuff? I mean, I'm seeing, all behind you, you've got a ton of books, but I don't know if they're more omnibuses type things or if they're floppies.
No, I do. I'm a big comic collector, not for investment ever. I don't think I've ever sold a comic ever. But no, I take that back. One time when I was working at Target, when I was in college, a guy bought all my Spawn comics because I didn't like them anymore. So that was the one time 25 years ago. I do, and I actually love Marvel Team Up. That was one of the first comics I ever got into as a kid. It was even just like the reprints of it, which it was like books from the 70s and early 80s, but being reprinted in like 1987 already. Great title, awesome stuff. Chris Claremont wrote a lot of those. John Byrne drew a bunch of those, and there's Dave Cockrum. Lots of great Marvel talent on those books.
Yeah, absolutely, there are. All right, great, nice additions, Jesus. I'm gonna go ahead and invite Tim to go next on the recent pickup list. Tim, do you have anything you've recently read or picked up?
Yeah, I've been a fan of it when it came out, but in one of my moves, I lost it. But the Grant Morrison Marvel Boys series from about 2000, I believe it came out. It's Grant Morrison and J.G. Jones. It's a Marvel Knights title. I loved it when it came out, and it was just like this weird, like, it's just super action, like low on plot, really. But it's all attitude. It's kind of Grant doing like a modern Submariner, kind of like the the whole idea that Marvel characters were always kind of like these rebels, and they were kind of like, trying to fuck with the system, and so Marvel Boy is that. But I picked up issue 5 because I've been missing it, and it's kind of ties all this stuff together, and it's really weird. And there's this character whose father is called Mr. Midas, and he's like this weird. He's wearing an Iron Man suit, but he's got all the powers of the Fantastic Four, and he's clearly in love with his daughter. It's this really weird, very, very twisty, really crazy Marvel series. Nobody's written that character to the level of what Grant did with it. It was so strange and just off kilter. So it was a great series. And I think I got it for a song on eBay, maybe like $6 or something. But if it's a book you haven't read, it's just like, it was at a time when Marvel was just throwing everything out, and Marvel Knights was a great imprint, and there was tons of cool stuff coming out of there. I don't know if it's worth anything. I don't know if it'll ever be worth anything. I doubt Marvel Boy will ever be in a movie. But that's the movie's loss is not loss.
There is actually some spec with Marvel Boy and that series.
Oh, okay.
September of 2021, Korean actor Park Soo-jung was confirmed for the Marvels, and that's a potential character that he could play, which is Marvel Boy. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, they can figure out something to do with it. It's so Grant. I can't imagine it working very well. Maybe, yeah, shit. I'd budget.
Nice. Okay, well, thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna go ahead and go with my recent pickups. So I've got 2. So I wanted to start with, so we've talked about this book already. We actually talked about it with Mark Wade, but this is Chronophage. I brought it up as a recent pickup before, read it, and honestly, it really was such a journey that I enjoyed. But I told Mark the same thing, and Mark's comments were that he said it was a high watermark for his time as a publisher with Humanoids. It really was one of the more interesting and enjoyable reads I've had this year so far. So I would put it on my top 10 list. Absolutely.
Thank you. And I would say the weird thing about it, it's an OGN, and so we're in such a weird time with like who the audience for original graphic novel is. Like the only reviews I've seen of it are like book blogs. Like it's comic people are so hard to reach with that kind of thing. So it's interesting. I hope people kind of find it, but I appreciate it. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I genuinely liked it. And I told Mark when I got to the end of it, I was like, okay, this can't be the end though. This can't be the end of these characters or the story. And I understand it certainly does come to a complete conclusion, but I felt like it was just like a story arc and there needed to be more. I wanted more backstory into the male character, the monsters, so to speak. And the science fiction horror elements. I know, Jesus, I know. You just got to read it. You've had a month.
Oh, how dare you? How dare you?
But the science fiction horror elements of it really worked well for me, not to mention the underlying thread of abusive relationships, right? That thread in the story, I think there's way more to tell in that vein. So not to shower you with too many compliments, Tim, but I just
want people to read it. So yeah, please do. And please read the book. I just, don't steal it, but if you need to borrow it to read it, I don't care. Just fucking read it. I just want people to read it. Because, and the art, Ilias, it's just the art of his career and the storytelling. And that was one of the things, that I really liked about this one. It's so hard to do sort of experimental story stuff. Like Tom King is the only one I know pulls it off, but in a monthly comic. But like being able to mess around with, the storytelling and how we told it, and is such a hard thing to do regularly. So finally getting to do it and having Ilias be the guy to pull it off was, rewarding. And so I just want people to check it out.
Absolutely. Well, everybody should check it out.
Is there more story there? I mean, I haven't read it. Unfortunately, I do want to read it. I think it's my jam. But based on what Jake is saying, is there more to that story?
If it sells well enough, I have a sequel. I know what it is. I know what the sequel is. But yeah, I guess it would have to sell a certain number, and Humanoids would have to say, "Oh, hey, that's what we would like to do again because that made us some money." So, Mark Waid was like one of the editors on it and stuff. So obviously, it comes with high caliber talent, and the publisher is great. So, yeah, let's hope it finds some readers.
Well, I will just start sending some sternly worded letters to as many people as I need to get a sequel.
Yeah. And the sequel idea that I have is it's a totally different thing, but it's the same themes, and I think it would be really fun. I think people would enjoy us doing a different sort of version of that story.
Nice. All right. Well, I don't want to shortchange my second recent pickup, and this is another one relating to you, Mr. Seeley. This is I actually have all of them, but except for the last one. But this is Robins. So right now I have 4 and 5. Excuse me, 6 isn't out yet. But I wanted to bring up Robins. This is something that I wasn't a part of the original voters, but the series Robins won the DC Round Robin. Which
not to be confusing there.
Yes. Yeah, no, not confusing at all. But it was a contest that DC ran where a number of creators had pitches. And I don't want to get it wrong, but you all had pitches, and then there was basically a bracket, which was March of last year, March or May.
Yeah, May of last year. Yeah,
and so then it went down the timeline of people voted in the bracket to see who would win, and it came down to a Suicide Squad title and a Robins title. Yeah. And Robins ended up winning. So this is the results of that. And it won the fact that you're balancing all of these Robins. And for those of you listening who have not gotten on this series, one, it's extremely enjoyable, mostly because I'm a huge Batman fan. But one of the things that makes Batman Batman is all of his ancillary characters that kind of hover around him and almost absorb him and what his personality is. But this really gets to the characters, all of your favorite Robins, all in the same place. And even your not so favorite Robins, they're there too. And and it's actually really enjoyable. I got to say, I just finished reading number 5, which just came out, I believe, 2 weeks ago. I finished reading number 5, and I got to tell you, I don't know how you're wrapping this up in 6. I don't know how you're doing it. I mean, I know you do it because it only says there's 6, but like, holy shit, like the story is the twists and turns and where you take the characters, and I don't know. It's just kind of interesting and intriguing, and it's stuff I never thought you could do with Robin, but you did.
Because our pitch was, let's do Hush with Robins. Like, let's do there's a big thing that ties together all these elements of their history, with some secret villain. Like, that was the initial sort of pitch. And, but they had 12 to do Hush, and we had 6. So, but I think it's, I wouldn't do like a contest again. Because a lot of people thought, like, by us having people vote means that we hated them, or because we didn't pick the thing they wanted, or like, it was such a weird, like, political thing. And I guess I should have known that, because everything is that now. Yeah, but I mean, like, in the end, people love those characters, and the best thing about the Robins, and this was in the pitch, was basically this idea that, like, every generation of comic fans grows up with a Robin. And for a long time, it would just be, there was the Dick Grayson era, but then you would follow him when he became a Teen Titan, and then you follow him when he became Nightwing, and then, like, Robin is you, right? You get to hang out with Batman and all these superheroes, and, like, you go into it, like, with bright views of everything, and you're a kid and you're excited, and that's Robin, right? He's excited, he's happy, and he's not, like, grim or anything. And so this was something that we were considering with this story, was how do we make them, different? And one of the things I got shit for was, like, keeping Jason sort of like the wild card, because people were like, well, he's changed, he's a nice guy. It's like, well, that's not, I can't have him be that when he's surrounded by the other guys, right? Like, he can't be the same. Like, they have to be different. And this has to be like a universal story that anybody can read, like, that hasn't caught up on every, story. Like, it has to be the sort of most distilled versions of those characters.
But you even joked about it in the first issue with Jason. You made the joke about him even like he was like the meta dialogue he had. It's like everybody's worried about what Jason's going to say. Like you even said
I
it.
thought it was there, but yeah. Yeah. Yes. That was the hard part of this book. And I had to like deal with people being temporarily pissed off because they think I crapped on their Robin. But it's like, no, I know what we're doing here and it will work. I promise. So it was just, and it does work. In the end, last issue, we brought it together, and I think it definitely ties everything up. But yeah, it's interesting, and obviously, like, I wanted to use a villain that we hadn't seen before, and but like tie them back to the past, and that's also like hard to do now. Whereas like when you did Hush, you could just be like, "There's this guy, his name is Tommy Elliott," and people like, "Great, whatever." And like now, it's like it was just like weirder. I don't know. People got more continuity concerned than they used to be.
Do you think that back when they did Hush, it was in part because I don't know, was it sold more as an event and Robin's is less so?
I just think Batman is incredibly flexible. Like people just like the Robins, I think because people, they grab onto them so personally. Whereas Batman, just everybody likes Batman. Like I think Batman is just inherently more flexible, and there's been so many sort of takes on Batman that people don't really notice. Like if you just do another take on Batman, you're like, oh, that's just part of the deal. Whereas the Robins are so very personal to people, which is interesting. And I think Batman and Superman are not like that, right? I mean, they're so iconic, they're so big, and there's only really been, I mean, yes, there are other people who have taken the title, but not in the way that the Robins do, where like I guess they change, and so it seems more like they have one history. Whereas like with Batman, you don't think he has one history. So yeah, it's weird. It was definitely, just as sort of as the way people sort of read these DC characters, it's very clear that there's a very different expectation for Robins than there is for Batman or Superman. But maybe that's good. That's probably.
So you kind of hit on something that you've kind of talked about before, and it's very interesting in this context. But the expectation of fandom, right? So is that something that you go into like Robin's, like keenly aware of, right? That or you just, I'm gonna do it and I know what's gonna happen, and it is what it is.
So I never do, and that's my fault. Like I don't. To me, like I just have to tell a story, and I have to do. So that means I have to. Some stuff can't fit, right? These characters have 80 years of history. Like it can't all fit. But some of it can. And so I was just thinking of it that way. And then, this goes back to Nightwing as well. Like when I was working on Nightwing or Grayson, like, I've read a lot of these comics, not all of them, but a lot of them. And I usually think that that's sufficient. And then I'm always surprised because there's always someone who's read more than I have. So yeah, that always makes it a little bit tougher. Yeah, I mean, and also like you can't. I know that there's sort of fan expectations for everything, which is why it's nice to write newer characters. Like that's why Spider-Gwen is so much easier because like, I've read all those books and that's easy and it's not hard for me to remember everything that happened, but I can't remember 80 years of Robin stories. I just can't.
Damn you, Tim, for not being able to do that.
Yeah. But I know a lot of them, and part of it is just got to be like accepting that I can't make everyone happy, which is hard sometimes because I'm a people pleaser. But so that definitely makes it. And the thing I find also interesting is sometimes I'll pick like a very specific era of the story, like for Lobo, like that is a Lobo story. How Lobo stories used to be told. But there are people who like, we're like, what, Lobo can talk to he can break the fourth wall now? It's like, Lobo was like always doing that. And I forget that like people sometimes come in much later and they're, you'll work on, like, for instance, working on Lobo. I had people be like, oh, this is just a Deadpool ripoff. You're like, wait. Like, it's so hard to sort of understand that your experience with the character is not the same as the entire group of fandoms, and you wish people new stuff, but they don't. And so, in the same way that I can't know everything about a character, they can't either. So,
Man, that's a really, interesting perspective that I had never really analyzed, because you're right. Like, you got people coming in, mid 2010s. They don't know about the fourth wall. They don't know, they only know, Lobo's never been in the big screen, but Deadpool has. So, he's a Deadpool ripoff. And you're like, no, he's not, and that's interesting to see how many people actually go back. It's just really interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of those characters, I mean, Lobo was making fun of the shit Deadpool makes fun of like 5 to 10 years before. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so, so it's always just interesting to sort of, I always care about like the general thing. Like, what is the character's general thing? Like, I don't worry a lot about specifics, but like, like working on Robins, I read all the sort of, history parts, like the when they first showed up and their mission, and but so that's what I distilled in my head, and that's what I did with Lobo, and then you find out like not everybody's distilled version is the same as you.
Nice.
Oh man.
All right. Well, Tim, I think that will probably wrap it up for the recent pickup segment. So we're going to roll on, keep going into the next segment. We've got
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
That's right, the Grail Tale segment. Tim, this is our favorite segment. This is the one that our show is more known for, because we like to ask creators and collectors, essentially, what's the most important thing you have in your collection, the most dear to you, and what's the story behind it? What makes it special?
Okay, yeah, I did my my research. I have tons of shit, so I had to find a very specific one.
Awesome. Well, I guess go ahead, take it away.
Well, so when I was a kid, my first sort of experience with comics at all was the Masters of the Universe figures came with comics. So like when I was 5 years old for my birthday, my grandma got me He-Man and a Battle Cat, and then it came with this comic, and that was my first comic book. And my mom read it to me till it fell apart, and then that was what kind of, my parents were like, "Oh, you like comics?" My dad had grown up on Marvel comics. My mom had grown up on Archie comics. So then they would be like, "Hey, we'll take you to the grocery store and you pick up some comics." So that's kind of how I, and then Spider-Man was my first not He-Man comic, and stuff like that. But so very early when I was reading comics, I had a very limited selection because it was a grocery store. We didn't have a comic book store anywhere near my house. 2.5 hours, it was the closest comic store. So it was a grocery store, and so you'd miss shit all the time. But there was a used bookstore, and it was called Book World. And my mom used to take us there on weekends, and she would give us like $10 for me and my brothers, and we'd just sit and buy as many like comics as we could get. And there was, so this is like 2 years after I'd started reading comics, but there was DC Comics had done a Masters of the Universe He-Man insert. Like they'd done a He-Man series, like a Masters of the Universe series. And then they'd also done an insert, which was in like Firestorm and a couple other comics, which was He-Man and Superman. So this whole story where He-Man gets brought in, and Skeletor mentions in this story that he knows Superman. And I was like, what? How the fuck does he know Superman? And so comes to find out that he references a comic called DC Comics Presents 47, which is a one-shot, which is Superman and Masters of the Universe. It's obviously an advertising thing that DC does for Mattel in 1982. But I didn't have it as a kid, and I couldn't find it. It was like one of those things you never find. And so the story is referenced, and I'm like, He-Man fights Superman, and all these characters hang out, and I don't have it. So it took me years, and I finally got it. It's the only graded comic I have, but I have one mounted on my wall right over there. Actually, I could probably take it off and bring it over, but we're on radio, so it doesn't matter.
Don't worry.
But so I have one, and it's I didn't get to read it because mine is fucking graded until it was reprinted in the DC Omnibus, the DC Master Universe Omnibus. They put that in there.
Oh, nice!
But I finally got to read it. Yeah, and they sent me a copy because I was working on Injustice Master Universe. But so then when I finally got to work on Injustice Master Universe, like I was like, I'm come full circle. Like I was spending my whole youth, reading these He-Man comics, and that's what got me into Spider-Man. That's what got me into DC stuff, and now I get to do Superman fighting He-Man. So there you go.
So you never got to read your copy, but it's hanging on your wall. Is it right next to? Do you have a copy of your own book up there as well?
Oh no,
you would not. You're not side by side.
Some of my. I mean, you can see my office. There's my rack there, and my Superpowers and Secret Wars figures, nice. And then over there you got all the stuff, and then I have prints of my own stuff up there.
Oh, nice.
So there you can see right in the corner there. There's the up above Love Money. There is my DC Comics Presents 47. But yeah, so there you go. There's
the tour.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome, man. So you mentioned full circle. I mean, did you ever think that would happen? Like, was that even like, oh, I'm going to do it, or it just kind of happened, or how did it land?
I mean, people knew I was the He-Man guy. Like, I just talk about it for fun. And I started buying the figures when I was in college. I had the figures when I was a kid, and then I got rid of them when I was 13. Because, you were supposed to get rid of your toys when you're 13, but I regretted it immediately. And then when I was in college, when I was 18, I was in a sculpture class, and I had to go to Goodwill to buy like shit to make sculptures all the time. And I would see He-Man figures there. This is like, I don't know, 1995 or something. And so I just started buying them again. And then I did that like all through my late teens and early 20s. And so kind of I just collected the Master Universe stuff just to have something to do that wasn't comics, I guess. And then when I first started doing stuff with DC, people always like, man, DC has the Master Universe license. You should bug them to do it. It's like, well, I like the comic so much, I don't want to fuck it up. So I liked it. So, but then, and I also just wanted to have something I was a fan of, I guess. I don't know. Just sometimes just to have something that you don't work on. Like, so I initially sort of was like, I'm not going to bug them about it. I don't need to do it. And then Mattel hired me to write some of the mini comics for the toys because I kind of got to be friends with all those people, and it just everybody knows I'm the He-Man guy. Like that's just who I am. So, but I resisted for a while. But when the main editor that ran the line, Jim Chadwick, emailed me and said, "Hey, I have a He-Man thing. I need you to do it." And I was like, "Well, what is it?" He said, "It's Injustice." I was like, "Shit, it's Superman and He-Man." But it's evil Superman. I was like, I can write evil Superman. But then I figured out an idea. I had an idea for it, which was basically that if Superman is evil, then the universe replaces him with He-Man. So like He-Man is like the natural response to if the universe saying like we can't have this, we have to have
some balance.
And so it replaces him basically with He-Man. And I was like, I got to do that. So I pitched it and I got the gig. So. And then I did Masters of the Multiverse as well, which is like all of the different Master Universe characters from different media. So you got the Filmation cartoon and the original mini comics and the 2000 cartoon, like all those versions. It's Spider-Verse, but with He-Man. And that was just like the most fun I ever had making anything. So
incredible. So you basically you just had to put out the He-Man vibe a little bit. Like naturally, you just give off that He-Man vibe, and over time, it just came.
I had written. There's an art book called Art of the Master Universe that Dark Horse did. That my brother and I wrote because we were friends with the guys at Dark Horse, and they were like, they had images, but they said someone's got to write this, and it's really got to be you. And I'm like, all right. So my brother and I wrote it, and it was amazing. It was like one of the most fun we had ever had. Mattel sent us these boxes of images, and we just go through, and like it was awesome. We would sit at a bar every Thursday and just get shit-faced and look at pictures of He-Man. It was great. And then, but that book was a very successful book. It was like, I mean, it's probably the most, like the highest selling thing I've ever done is that book. So, so that like kind of led into it. People knew we were the He-Man guys because of that. So.
Nice. Well, then I sorry to interrupt you, Jesus. I've got to ask Tim, what is your favorite He-Man show? What is your favorite He-Man cartoon? There's been a few interpretations or a few versions.
Well, I mean, I have a lot of affection for the original one because I grew up on it, but you watch it now. It's for kids, obviously. And it's also got limitations that they did like 65 episodes a year. Like it's insane how many episodes they did. So, the best one, I think, I really like Revelations, and I like the 2000X cartoon. But dude, that new kids show is incredible. The one that's on Netflix, the CG one, is so good. It's hilarious and super inventive. My kid loves it. I can watch it with her, but I can watch it as well. And also, there's a scene where He-Man and Skeletor have to dance with each other. Robots. And Skeletor at one point says, "Twirl me," and so it's awesome. It's the greatest. So that's my favorite currently. I really like Revelations as well, but man, I love that kids one. It's so fucking good.
I'm gonna have to take a look at that one because I don't know it. My son was really into the remake from
2000X one, yeah, the 2002 Mike Young one.
Yes, my son, who's now 13, was into that. But then, as a young child, I think I was probably 3 or 4. And this might be TMI for the listeners out there. My mom still has photos of me and my older brother. We used to run around in He-Man underwear with He-Man swords, and just we'd hold the swords up, we'd do the whole thing. Yeah, it was. I was a big fan of it as a child. But then I got really into Ninja Turtles because that's what kids did.
Very much so.
Man, that's interesting. I don't really have that upbringing, but for me, my first, I guess, foray introduction to He-Man was that. What was it? An 80s movie or 90s movie with
1987 movie?
Dolph Lundgren.
That one.
Yeah,
yes, and I don't care what anybody says about it, man. I liked the movie as a kid. I was like, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 when I saw it. I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
It's the best Fourth World movie, I think. It's definitely Jack Kirby all the way. So yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man.
That movie made me want fried chicken so badly. I don't know why, but every time I think of that movie, I think of the fried chicken in that movie.
Yeah. They make a big deal of it because she says, "What are these sticks the food is on?" You find out everybody on Attorney is a vegan, which you didn't know before that. So.
Oh man. Okay, well, let's keep the trainer rolling and let's get into our last segment.
Speculation.
That's right, the speculation segment where we talk about some books, some collectibles that you might be able to go out and potentially flip to help pay for the hobby or help the hobby pay for itself. This is something that we do. Jesus and I are avid collectors. We have been for years. And this was kind of one of the catalysts as well for us to start this podcast, simply because we like to talk about comic books. And ultimately, some of the comic books we like to buy are too expensive to just... Our wives wouldn't just let us go out and pay for them. So we take books that we already have and we sell those to get the ones that we really want. And so that's kind of where this segment came from. Jesus, I'm going to let you kick us off with this one.
All right, so this is where the tease pays off. This is the tease from the beginning of the show. I'm talking about a very scarce book for the scarce army out there, if you will. This book is from 2004. Of course, I'm talking about Tim Seeley's Hack and Slash from Devil's Due Publishing, the first printing. Very scarce book, very hard to get a hold of, and also very hard to get a hold of in high grade. I guess because it's from 2004. But this book is just, I don't know. They're right now it's selling raw for anywhere between $75 and $150. And there's just so much.
Really?
Yeah. There's so much history with this book, which is kind of something I wanted to get into and ask, because one of the reasons why there's so much it's going for that amount is because this book, this IP has been optioned, I guess, I don't know, multiple times, or like been in production multiple times. There's been multiple actors kind of attached to it, multiple studios, if you will. And those things always drive the price, because speculators think that once they see it on the big screen or a trailer, the price skyrockets. But, for us, we read this. I read it. I think it's awesome. It has a strong female lead. It's just fun and funny. But at the same time, it kind of, puts the tropes on its head, which is pretty cool. And I won't spoil it like Jake does. So go out and read Hack and Slash.
It's been out for a while. Go read this stuff.
18 years. That issue is great. 2004.
Yeah, 18
2004.
years. Well, and Jesus, not to cut in, but talk about the different publishers. I mean, multiple publishers as well on the series, and it's been around for a while, and it's gone through iterations. I'm a big fan of the series, so sorry for stepping on your toes on your spec.
Yeah. Well, and so that's the thing too, real quick. 2004, you had Hack and Slash when it started, but then also you have a Kickstarter, right, Tim, that you did recently for Hack and Slash?
Yeah, well, we do these fancy hardcover editions. So we basically just do like a pre-order for them. They're these. So like we do, we take all the content and put it in these nice things. We just do them for pre-order via Kickstarter because it's a lot easier to ship and do like fat ass books like this with a little bit of pre-order. So it comes out from Image as well.
And it has a new story on the new one, right? I think you mentioned on.
Yeah, they always have a new story. All the collections have a new one, and then the current one we're running is all the crossovers that, not all of them, but a lot of the crossovers we do with Dynamite. So the current Kickstarter hardcover pre-order is for the one that has the Vampirella crossover, the Chaos Comics crossover, Eva, all that stuff is also in there.
Okay, awesome. So my question on this Hack and Slash is, as a fan, can we, expect to see this on the big screen? Is that something that's coming, or where does it stand?
I don't know. I mean, it was optioned in 2009, 2010, so somewhere in there, and then they bought it. I mean, they bought the rights to it. It was originally the Studio Rogue Pictures, which is part of Universal, and then that and what happened to us was just corporate bullshit. Like, Rogue got sold off in a big sale from Universal when NBC and all this stuff, NBC bought Universal and Comcast and all this crap. So the rights are with the Studio Relativity, and I mean, I don't know. They have a script. They have people who want to do it. They just, I haven't seen anything to indicate that's, imminent. But I don't know. It's just kind of a bummer. But it could go anytime or it could not. There's certainly people. I get emails every week, not every week now, but probably every 2 weeks. Some director, like I get like an email from someone whose name I recognize, and I'm like, oh fuck, I know what they're going to ask me, and it's always like, hey, is Hack Slash available? Like, well, you got to check with Relativity. But I mean, we had various times, like back when he had just done Slither. I pushed for James Gunn to do. I wanted Relativity to hire James Gunn. And they're like, well, I don't know. Slither wasn't like a big hit. I was like, this guy's gonna be fucking huge. And so there you go. That's been my experience.
Did they watch Slither, or did they just look at its initial box office? Because
of course, I mean that's of course all they did. And then like it's just such a bummer. On the and I've had other big directors that if I said their name, have emailed me and be like, hey, we want to do Hack Slash. And then I just cry because I can't do anything about it. It's Relativity. They have to do it. So, I mean, will they ever do something with it? Probably. It would be to their advantage. Obviously, they paid money for it.
They invested.
Yeah. So, but it's just like, finding the right creatives and shit. It's just, and we've been through so many, and I don't know.
Well, I guess let's see if so the silver lining. I'm a silver lining kind of guy. The silver lining here is it is currently still optioned, and you are regularly still getting people contacting you, seeing if it's available, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the is it in active development? Like, is there a cast or anything? No. Are they always probably in development? Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, they've got to pretend they're doing stuff. So, but like I said, the rights are fully paid for. So at various times we've been all the way up to the line of like casting and location scouting, and like we've been there multiple times. We had 5 scripts, I think 5, maybe 6.
Wow.
So, and I've seen the TV version worked out. I've seen the movie version. I've seen the animated version. Yeah.
I could really see this as a series. Maybe it's because of the nature of how I consumed it myself, but I really do see this could work really well as a series.
Yeah, it'd be like sexier underpants showing Supernatural, right? I mean, that's like, I mean, that show's been on for 187 years. So like, well, that should definitely be, that's a great template. Like that's what you want, is a show that's on, since the 1960s or whatever Supernatural's been on. So
yeah, but hack and slash is like dials to 11, right? Like that's the fun part about it, is it really doesn't, it's so good. Everybody out there listening who has not read that series yet, I mean, Chronophage is great. I love it, but hack and slash is my Tim Seeley favorite. Just got to say
and go out and get the omnibus from the Kickstarter. I mean, you get another story in it. You get all the stuff jam packed into it. Why not? I mean, that thing is doing, from what I can tell, gangbusters, man. So there's still a hardcore contingency of people that love hack and slash. Me among them.
Yeah, what are you doing with your life out there listening? Go and get the omnibus of hack and slash. Sorry. Okay. Let's keep this rolling. Tim, I know that you had said that you'd never sold a book in your life, so this is always kind of fun when we ask somebody who doesn't spec to actually just toss out. Do you have anything that you think might be fun for somebody to go out and get?
Well, shit. I didn't know fucking hack slash went for $175 or whatever. I got a stack of those. You know what? I'll tell you a story. Yes, get your hack slash, the first one. But when we first published the book, so 2004, we had a box of them at the studio, Devil's Due. And the grading company, CGC, was just starting out. And they contacted a bunch of publishers. Us, and I remember CrossGen and IDW and a couple of people, and they said, hey, send us some of your new books and we'll just do it for free. We'll just grade them for you just so you can see the process. So we just had those hack slash books, and I think we sent 9 of them, if I remember, of the first one. And they came back, and then we forgot about it, and it sat at the studio for, I don't know, probably 13 years, probably. And then I found them, and I was like, holy shit, I have like 9 graded hack slash ones. Like, they're all 9.8s, like all that shit.
Nice.
And then I moved studios and I lost them all. I have no idea where they are. I have no idea.
Oh, you want some good news? Jesus, tell them how much they're selling. The 9.8s are selling for, because the 175 was raw.
So the 9.8s are selling for over $450 right now.
Oh.
So you multiply that by, you said you had how many of those? 9? I mean, that's a
what, 30?
That's a good chunk of change. That's a good chunk of change. So if anybody out there ran across some 9.8s, they're half Tim Seeley's and half mine. So if you can afford them.
Like, found them in an alley in Chicago somewhere. So there you go. I mean, they could be in my house somewhere. It's possible, but I didn't see them, and that makes me concerned. But I didn't realize it was like $400. Jesus Christ, that hurts.
I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have told you that.
Well, I'm glad for the people that have one. So enjoy. And I have a stack of raw ones. I have probably, I don't know, 20 of them.
Oh, there you go. You're sitting on a stack of cash there.
That's a good little chunk of change too. If you ever want to sell some of those, or at a con. I mean, at a con too. People love seeing them at a con, and
just have a stack there, and you can sign them and sell them.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be like when I just want to really badly go on a vacation. I just need some cash, or like fucking some dental work done or some shit.
There's always money in the banana stand, Tim.
That's my banana stand.
Okay, well, I will finish up the speculation segment. I've got another Tim Seeley book that I am a big fan of, something that I would consider it slightly different, maybe not different if you really get into hack and slash, one that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and that is Money Shot. This came out in 2019. I'm a big fan of Money Shot. This was published by Vault. Tim, this is you and Sarah Beatty.
Yep.
We're on the writing of it, correct?
Yep.
And then you had Rebecca Isaacs doing the artwork, or was Russell doing the artwork as well? Kurt Michael Russell.
Yeah, Kurt's the colors.
Oh, excuse me. Okay. Well, that was so I was a big fan of the series. I think you actually have volume 3 coming out April 6th as well.
Yep, the trade. Yeah, that's by Carolyn. Carolyn Lillian drew that particular arc. Yeah, volume 3 comes out.
Yes, and it's a really cool story. It is a it's an interesting story. Basically, you have a female scientist in the distant future who goes to other worlds to have sex with their aliens, right? And then it's basically porn, and they're recording it all.
Yeah, the more elegant version that sounds less dirty is that they have to fund their scientific studies because there's no money in the future for science because nobody gives a shit, and so they fund it by filming basically like YouPorn type videos of them humping aliens, and then the problem, of course, is that they're not sex workers, so it's messy. They keep falling in love with each other, and they get jealous, and they just fuck everything up. So that's what it's...
Tim, I should have told you, there's a tradition on this show of Jake just butchering the pitches for people's books. So that was your version of that. Yeah. Thanks for being a good sport. But in all seriousness, though, Money Shot is very enjoyable. It's hilarious. It is intriguing. The art is gorgeous. Have you done any of the art on Money Shot? Did you?
I did covers. Yeah, I just did covers. I haven't drawn any of it. We need ladies to draw that book because the dudes just don't draw the kind of porn I want to see. They just it all looks like fucking, I don't know. Just like weird. I just don't want it to be like all 1980s strippers. Like that's what dudes.
Well, it's very enjoyable. I also genuinely, another one of your series I think would translate really well to a television series, like extremely well into a television series, just because of how interesting it is. And I think it would fit really well on like a Showtime or HBO or one of those studios that likes to push the boundaries. One of those channels that like to just push and to get further and further into that realm of really risque, but also intriguing and emotionally, interesting.
I agree, and we're working on it. So there you go.
Well, I'm sorry. What was that?
We're working on it.
Oh, okay. Is there any news there? Is there something that you could reveal?
Nothing I would do. You have to leave it for those people. So, but yes, we agree.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I will wait patiently for some news to officially come out, but I really do enjoy the series. And for those listening, I would go out and get your hands on this series as well. Money Shot #1 came out in 2019. So, and the trades are readily available, and there's a new one coming out in April.
Yes, there's 3 volumes as of April 6th. There's 2 right now. They're each 5 issues apiece. They're meant to be extremely readable, and you can share it with your friends. It's also popular with the ladies, so I think that's a big thing now, is like finally realizing how much women like comics, but also like you can do pervy stuff for women and they like it. You just have to not do it like 80 strippers with tons of lights at them.
Noted. All right. Well, that is going to wrap up the speculation segment, and that is also going to wrap up this episode of Spec Tales. Before we finish, Tim, the real last thing that I have is friend of the show and one of our previous guests, Mark Wade, did give us, he heard we were going to be talking to you, so he decided to ask a final question. So that's what we're going to leave you with here. From a writer's perspective, how do you decide which of your projects to take to which publisher?
Oh, that's a great Mark Wade question. So I usually try to, if there's one thing I've kind of learned, it's certain things I want to have as much control as I can. And so I try to keep those as image projects, right? So like I kind of go through like things I want to work on, things I want to do. And obviously I just have to do a certain amount of work because I have to make money. So I try to do the ones that I want to have the most control of. I try to take those to image. And then the ones that I think are would benefit the most from having an editor, which Image doesn't have, and then also sort of that I know are weird enough that like it would benefit from like a more esoteric publisher. I try to take those to Vault or Dark Horse. Like everybody kind of has relationships with, various publishers. I've been in this a long time, so I have friends kind of at every place, which is nice. And so, but I usually try to take things to people I like. So, when Mark started at Humanoids, for instance, like, and Rob Levin started working there, and Heather Antos, like, I knew I could take Chronopage there because I like those people. And I knew that one had titties in it, so I knew it had to be like it had to be things with boobs and butts and penises in it. And they do that. So I guess first for me, it's always like, how much control do I need to have over it? And then is there people I like that work there? And what is the audience that I need to reach with this thing? It's kind of like the three things I try to keep in mind. And usually it has very little, and I probably wouldn't admit this to the publishers themselves, it has very little to do with the money. Very rare. So, yeah, it's almost always just like, what will it benefit this the most,
So West of Sundown is a little weird, and that's why it's at Vault.
Yeah, it's fucking super weird. I mean, it's, a Western is a little bit of it can be kind of a risk, because I think there's this sort of belief that, Westerns are kind of an old genre. But I don't know, man. The Westerns never go away, and I knew I wanted to do this with friends of mine, and I kind of felt like, Walt would take care of it. And we'd just done Vampire the Masquerade together, so I know they know monster stuff and they know horror stuff. So, yeah, it was one I had. It came quick. Like West of Sundown was like an idea, and I just had like a little bit of an idea, and I called my friend Aaron Campbell, and I was like, "Hey, I got this idea," and then he like immediately figured out the rest of it, and then just like. And I was like, now you're the co-creator, fuck, and then but then it just came together quickly. And not all books are like that. Other books take a lot longer. Money Shot took 5 years, 6 years for me to kind of get it to the point where I could pitch it. Cause I was waiting for the right people to come along. So, cause I pitched that with Sarah and I pitched that with Rebecca, but I had to wait for them to be available, so. But this was just Aaron and he and I are really old friends, and Jim Terry and I are old friends. So, if I can get my buddies to do it, then that also increases the speed of which I can do something.
Nice.
It's fucking amazing that anything gets done. That's the thing. Like, just the timing shit that and just the luck you need and publishers and unbelievable that anything gets made ever.
Well, I am glad that stuff is getting made, especially your stuff, because it genuinely is one of the more enjoyable things to read. Whenever it's on the shelf, if I see your name, it's always a pickup for me. So
well, thanks. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. To remind all the listeners, here's some dates you need to be looking out for. West of Sundown, the new vampire Western saga is coming out April 6th. So you may have enough time to still get it on your pull list to see if your local LCS can at least pull a copy for you. Then Robin's book 6. So the final book in this series is coming out April 19th. So that means that you have a couple of weeks still to actually read books 1 through 5. Those are available on your store shelves and online. Lastly, you can go and find Tim's other works, Chronophage from Humanoids, Hack and Slash. The omnibus is available. Omnibuses are readily available both online to read, and you can find Tim online, and the Kickstarter is available still. Is it still up?
Oh yeah, it's up to another 2 weeks, I think. And also, I should point out, Gwenverse 1 sold out, so that's also I don't know if that's
that is a big deal.
So first issue came out 2 weeks ago, and then but it sold out, and they're going to reprint on that one, so it'll be available.
Nice, but you're doing 5 of those. Is that one of 5? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then Hack and Slash, of course, is available, and Money Shot comes out April 6th as well, volume 3. So mark those dates down. Go look for Tim's stuff. Tim, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
You're very welcome. And everybody out there, if you want to find Tim online, he is available on Twitter, Instagram. Tim, anywhere else you want to point him to?
Just those two. Yeah, I'm Hacking Tim Seeley on Twitter and Tim Seeley on Instagram.
Perfect. If you want to reach out to Jesus and me, you can find us on Twitter at SpecTalesPod and on Instagram at Spec_Tales_podcast. That's it. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll catch you next week with yet another Grail Tale.